this is part of our members CPD webinar series, and we've invited Lucy-Anne and Abby to join us and to share some of their tips and ideas around blogging. So Abigail, Abby, as she's normally known, Abigail Ball is an assistant professor and head of technology enhanced learning at the Centre for Teacher Education at the University of Warwick, and Lucy-Anne, scroll down, is a partner in digitally enabled education at the University of South Wales, and they are both the recent recruits for our blog editors. So we have a team of volunteers who read, provide feedback, give suggestions to authors who submit blogs to our alt blog. So Lucy-Anne and Abby are not only talking as people who blog themselves and help other people to blog, but also in their capacity as our blog editors as well. So very good advice to come from them both on how to blog, and we'll share some ideas and other things throughout the session around our ALTC blog. So I'm going to pass over to Abby and Lucy-Anne. Do feel free throughout the session as well to pop things in the chat. I'll keep my eye on that for Lucy-Anne and Abby. And if you've got any questions, you're more than welcome throughout the session to put your microphones and videos on if you want to speak rather than type as well. That's absolutely welcome too. But otherwise, I'll hand over to Lucy-Anne and Abby for the session. Thank you both.
Thank you, Kerry. Can I just check that everyone can hear us?
Yep, all good.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay.
Can we have the first slide, please, Kerry? Fab. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. And thank you, Kerry, for that wonderful introduction. This slide, okay, you're probably thinking this is quite an interesting way to kick off a CPD session for ALT when we know exactly where we are. But one of the things that Abby and I were discussing when we put together this webinar was, what is the ALT blog? Abby will talk to you a little bit more about that in detail in a minute. But why does ALT have a blog? And as you can see on the screen, so a description of what the Association for Learning Technology is, as a leading professional body that tries to represent and be an authority in learning technology, to be a collaborative community where we want to support individuals and organisations, essentially all of our members, in a collaborative way so that we are contributing with each other as peers, and being inclusive, so recognising the diversity of the community that we have, spanning FE, HE industry. Myself, my background, I'm currently at USW, but previously I worked in museum education, still involved in that. And before that, I was a secondary school teacher as well. So the fact that we are able to represent, or ALT is able to represent, such a broad spectrum of professionals and to lead in this field is one of the driving reasons why ALT has a blog in the first place. It is one of the ways that we're able to encapsulate, I suppose, this responsibility. And as blog editors, certainly for myself, coming into the team, as Kerry said, very recently, for me, it's been a real way to I suppose take on some of that, shoulder some of that equal responsibility for us, I feel, to meet all of these, meet these kind of three key drivers for the association. So the ALT blog itself is couched within this broader mission for ALT itself.
Thank you, Lucy-Anne. That's great. So bearing in mind the drivers that Lucy-Anne's just talked about. First of all, I must apologise, I'm on a split screen, so it's not that I'm not looking at the camera, I'm looking at my screen. So you've probably got the slide on with me, but sorry. So the idea is that, as I say, bearing in mind the drivers that Lucy-Anne's just mentioned, you can see the blog address on the screen. The purpose of it really is to give ALT members a place where they can discuss things like topical updates. So it might be that they're publishing something that you want to inform the alt community about, as something that you've been working on, learning developments. So it's an opportunity for dissemination, and also an opportunity to engage. Possibly slightly, that's less of an effective way at the moment of doing that, and that's something that we're trying to encourage, is more engagement with the blog. And it's a way that we want to encourage people to explore ideas and foster community engagement. I think it's fair to say that at the moment the blog is probably more a person posts something and that's sort of like, it's quite contained. It's sort of that's the end of their engagement with it. So the engagement part is something that we definitely want to improve and increase as we go forward. Next slide, please.
Okay, so I'm keeping up on my screen, folks. We've got Abby and I haven't met in person, so we've done all of this as is normal over the internet, and I'm making sure that I keep my slides in the correct order, because that tells me when I'm supposed to speak and when Abby's supposed to speak. So I do apologise. It's my turn again. So why are we both here in our meetings? We're blog editors. We love to read blogs. What we'd really like to see is more people doing some blogging, and our community is diverse, as we've just seen. The remit is broad. We're here to support each other. So what we'd really like to do is to encourage people to write. You can, if you are a member of ALT, we have lots of different member types within ALT. We have our associate members, our individual members, our organisational members. We're all from different backgrounds. We all have different interests. We're all doing different things. And every single person within the ALT community, we believe, has the potential to be a blogger and to contribute to our community, something that you are blogging about. So it says here, contribute as any ALT member in good standing. Abby and I had a chat about what good standing actually means. They're not our words, but essentially, we're going to assume that you are all in good standing unless you tell us absolutely otherwise. So and we are seeking a variety, I suppose, of submissions. So you may be familiar with lots of different types of blog. There are some good examples out there. Within the alt blog, we're able to support, as you can see, different types of media. So if you do like to write, I'm a bit of a writer, I prefer text, that's great, but you can use other media as well. We're exploring ways that we can produce sort of more podcast style. We can include videos, especially if you want to showcase a project or you've got some media that you are able to share with us. Images, audio, things that you would like to hear about and things that you would like to see and read yourself. That is sort of what we're searching for, because that is what we believe the community will benefit from. As you can see, there's a list of suggested categories. So you can write about anything, but if we say you can write about anything, that's a little bit daunting, isn't it? So some sort of breakdowns that you might consider. So a review or a fraction of maybe a project, for example. It might not need to be something particularly large, but if you feel that you have learned something or you've been through a process that is going to be of benefit to others within the community, that's perfect for a blog. You might have a project report. My background in heritage leads me to sort of squeeze every little drop of usefulness out of every single thing that I create or do. So if you've written a big project report, why not produce a blog post to go alongside it, sort of a variety of ways of engaging. Case studies are great because they give other colleagues examples of what's been done, and you can see we've got numerous other opportunities as well. So interviews be really fascinating. If you've done an interview or you'd like to be interviewed, Abby, maybe we could have a chat about that in our next blog editors meeting. Opinion pieces, advices and tips. There's a lot of scope for you to contribute what you want to contribute to the blog. Next slide, please, Kerry.
Okay, so Lucianne's just focused in on why we would like you to blog as an institution, as ALT, but also, and then some of the different types of posts that you might want to consider. But there are also some personal benefits about blogging. So it's an opportunity for you to reflect on, let's say, a project or something that's worked well, something that perhaps hasn't worked so well, lessons learned. And as Lucianne said, it's an opportunity to disseminate good practice, so something that worked well in a project that you undertook and that you might want to then discuss it further with the wider community. It's also an opportunity for you to demonstrate your active participation with ALT and the wider community. If you're thinking about putting together application for certified membership of ALT, you can put the blog in as a piece of evidence. So it's publicly available. So whoever marks your blog would be able, your portfolio would be able to access this as a resource. It's also a way of, I suppose, a fairly easy, gentle introduction into academic writing. It can be a little bit daunting if somebody sort of says, oh, well, I'm put together a journal article. And one of the things that a blog can do is perhaps sort of give you a nice, easy way into that. And one sort of route that sometimes I tell students is about using a blog as a stepping stone for publication. So you could start out with something really, really small. So on X or Twitter or whatever it's called now, you start out with something, sort of an opinion on there. You then might think, okay, I'll now move up to something a bit larger. So let's say something between 500 and 1,000 words, and that's your blog post. You then think, right, okay, that worked well. I then want to move that into something more formal, such as a conference presentation. And then from that, you can then go on and think about maybe writing a journal article. So it's quite a nice way of sort of a stepping stone approach to get you into academic writing, if that's what you wanted to do. Next slide, please. Okay, so this one is, now we're going to look at some different blog examples from the actual ALT blog itself. That's the one.
Excellent. So Kerry's on the controls for us, folks. So Kerry, if you could scroll sort of down for us. What Abby and I would like to give folks, if you've not been onto the blog before, is just to show you some examples of the different types of blog that we've seen recently. So this particular article is one that I edited. As you can see, it's, I suppose we might call it a more traditional blog post in the sense that it is a lot of text. It's written in an article style. As Abby mentioned, in terms of building up your writing skills, what you'll see the authors of this article, they're well on their way actually to this being a sort of academic publication style piece of work. You can see it's broken down into their context, a description of what the project was that they went through. We've got a lot of reflection in there. It really it takes you through the experience of the project, how it was implemented, what the team learned from that. And as you can see, when we mentioned, it doesn't just have to be text. We've got some little, we can include images, we can include data, we can include presentations and things like that. Thank you very much, Kerry. She's absolutely brilliant. And hopefully you can sort of see from this one then, it's about engagements sort of with students with their digital literacy and improving their digital skills. So very sort of student focused project. There's lots that I took out of this reading it when I was going back and forth with the authors. I thought it was a very, very interesting one. Yes, in terms of this is a type of article that you might consider writing. if you had a project, whether it's successful or not, by the way, I think we should add that in, Abby, shouldn't we? You know, this blog is not, while of course it is a showcase for your success stories, it's also a showcase for how we got to those outcomes and whether things worked well or they didn't. This particular case study, for example, they take you through the process of discovery, essentially. So something that didn't go quite right the first time around, you know, and the different iterations that they tried as well. So very, very useful in terms of providing that, I think, broader support and broader learning for the community as a whole within this piece. You can see it was really long. They worked really hard on it. Blogs do not have to be, you know, of this length. It was just suitable for this particular piece and this particular topic. So if you've not seen this one and you are interested in this topic, do have a look at it. It's a really interesting piece. And I really enjoyed editing this one. So yeah, more of this, please, if you have anything like this in store. Okay, we have a different one coming up now. I'll hand over to Abby to talk about this one.
Thank you. Yes, so this is quite a different type of blog post. It's much more personal. It's obviously, you've got Roshni, who is events officer for a particular special interest group, and they've introduced themselves. It's quite personal, so there's information about their background, why they're interested in the particular special interest group, their motivations. So again, it's quite text-based, but it's not a formal article in that sense. It is very much hello, this is me, this is what I do. And so it's introducing the person, but it's also introducing the special interest group, and hopefully it will encourage people to take an interest in the group and sign up for it. Again, there are pictures within this and also quotes. So, but again, as you can see from this is much shorter. And there are a number of introductory pieces, I guess, from different colleagues, sort of interspersed amongst other types of blog article on the ALT blog. What we try to do is, I suppose, split the content, so that no two blog posts are identical sort of week on week. So it's a nice break. It's a nice way to reduce the read in this instance. So the first one that Lucy-Anne showed us, that was a very long blog. So probably the next one we'd probably try to have a shorter blog, just to sort of mix it up and cater for different people's interests and needs. And then, as you can see, there's also contact details for that particular individual person who wrote this blog as well. Thank you. Next one, which is, I think that's me again. Okay, so this one was a little bit a different type of blog. This was something that the author had put together. They were interested in AI in education, and they've been experimenting with using it. I think they're based in a law school, so it was with students who were studying to become lawyers. We've not had this type of blog before. We would definitely are interested in having this type of blog. So there's a video on the page that you can watch. And then one of the things that I decided to do with the blog was try to make it more of I suppose, like a question and answer session. So I think for me as a blog editor, I watched the video and thought, oh, this is really interesting, but how can I apply this learning into my practice? So I had a number of questions that I wanted to go back to the author about, and hence this is what you can see on the screen. You've got my questions and then the author gives further information. One of the things that we wanted to do with this one was to try to encourage discussion. And although all of the blogs have the opportunity for commenting on, sort of goes back to my comment at the start about they tend to be a one-off thing that somebody will post a comment and then or post a blog and then we don't get any extra comments. And it would be lovely even if you're not confident enough to think, oh, I could write a blog post. It might be you could start by writing a comment on a blog post, and then that may then kickstart you into thinking, oh, actually, do you know what? I could write this about a particular topic. So yeah, if you've got anything sort of video content, AI generated content, audio content, any of these things, we will consider all of these on the blog. So more than happy to have a look at these. We're looking forward to it. I have to say it was quite exciting reading this. This was my first one, and it was quite nice to get. I mean, I like text too, but it was nice to get something in a different format that I could sort of get my teeth into. So that was good. Thank you.
Okay, so the third one, I didn't edit, so I'm not going to claim to know this very, very well. But one of the reasons why we chose this particular example, you'll see it's a part 3. So again, Abby just showed you something not traditional, I suppose, within the blogs. Another thing that's, I suppose, not necessarily traditional for a blog is to have a series of sort of blog posts or articles. So this particular series is I think there are 3 in total. I think part 3 is the final one. But if you have a lot of information, for example, or maybe you have a project that's got lots of different aspects, or very much as this one is looking at different aspects, for example, of diversity, and they don't all necessarily sit within the same conversation, or it's important to break those down. So I suppose they're not overwhelming, because one of the great things about a blog versus maybe some academic literature or something that's a little bit more involved, I suppose, it's more easy to access that information. So one of the ways that we can approach broader topics, if you have one and you have the material, is to break things down into a series of posts. And it might be as well that you might have multiple contributors to those different posts as well. I'm throwing this out there, Abby. If you disagree, do chip in. But yeah, so this was the third in a series based on the animated inclusive personae project about creating digital persona that genuinely represent the diversity of students. So as you can see, the first post was about generating inclusive images. The second is about the language that is used in the EDI space. So you can see that each of these posts is tackling a slightly different thing. It's moving the conversation on. As you can see within the post as well, it's not just images, it's not just images, it's not just text. We have images as well. I think for me that this goes to show that quite often, as Abby said, the engagement is a kind of a one and done. But we would encourage writers to come back, I think is the point. It's not a case of if you've submitted an article to ALT, you never do that ever again. If you want to be a regular contributor, either because you have a broader project that we can work with you as editors on, potentially you've got something, but you might not know how to break it down. We can work with you on that process as well. If you've got something that you believe will be of value to contribute to the broader community, is relevant professionally, all of the normal things that you would consider in the first place, we could help you to develop a sort of more of a series of blogs, or we could help you to become a regular contributor as well. Oh, thank you, Kerry. Yes, we're going to talk more about the wonderful supportive process. We absolutely are here for you. Abby, is there anything I've missed about this series just before Kerry clicks off it there?
I don't think so, but I think it's a really good point that you just raised about it doesn't have to be an individual. It can be a group of people, and that's not something I'd considered. But yes, you don't have to write in isolation. It could be a group of people that you put together a submission.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this slide is really just about giving you some guidance about composing your blog, if you like. I've sort of started from the the sort of idea of that is it's text-based, and therefore quite a lot of the guidance is text-based. But it still applies in a lot of cases. So the first thing to say really is keep it simple. You can use illustrations, providing you have permission to do that, and other types of media. Obviously, we've already mentioned sort of video content, AI content that you can use within your blog. So think about things that might enhance your blog. Try to write concisely and use simple language. We're all in academic technology and in some form of largely educational institution, and we all know acronyms are just the bread and butter of our life in higher education particularly. So if you're going to use text, keep it simple, and also try and, for the blog particularly, and this will vary from different blogs, but generally between 500 and 1,000 words is what you should be aiming for. Or I suppose if it was an audio piece or a video piece, reasonably short. I would say probably don't be thinking sort of like 20-minute video of a talking head. That's probably not where we're going for. We want something a little bit shorter and easier to digest. It's okay to use links to other materials, so you don't have to paraphrase something. If something is perfectly well written on another public source, you can link to that source, so that again that will reduce the word count down. So rather than paraphrasing and quoting, you can just use the links instead. This second point goes back to Lucy Ann's slide about what the alt community is. So it's about understanding your audience. So the idea is that when you're producing your blog, think about it's the alt community that you are talking to. So be conversational, again, be concise. Try choosing an engaging title. I find that really, really hard. I'm terrible at picking titles. And yeah, any technical terms and acronyms that you use, do define them, because you can't assume that everybody will understand them. And again, avoid using jargon and colloquialisms, because not everybody will understand the terminology. We've tried, and we've talked about this several times, to encourage interaction. So if it's suitable within your post, you can invite readers to discuss or add comments. And you might want to pose questions to stimulate reader contribution. So something that's occurred to you, I don't know, let's say a next step on something, and you want some ideas about whether somebody thinks that would be a good idea, you could add that in at the end of your blog post. The other thing to bear in mind is just to consider the ethical implications of sharing information online. If you are reflecting on, let's say, a project that you undertook at your institution, you just need to be aware that check that you are actually allowed to discuss it and that it's not confidential before you do that. Although the blog post itself obviously will belong to you, not the institution, but it's just appropriate that you have permission to be able to write about it. And then also obviously respect copyright. So if you can use Creative Commons, make sure that any images used are free to use, that sort of thing. That's all good advice. Because otherwise, if something doesn't fit within these, when we go through the editing process, that there will be questions that we ask, and if something, let's say you've used images that you don't have the copyright to use, then we will bounce that back to you and say you need to get this checked. So that slows down the process of getting published. Next slide, please, Kerry. Thank you. So this is just generic guidance about blogging. So some of the formatting tips that you should think about: use short paragraphs and subheadings so you can clearly signpost the reader. And again, some of the examples that Lucy Ann showed, you could clearly see the title and the heading, so you knew what was coming up. Use bulleted list and small image files. Images should be JPEG or GIF format, and they need to be less than 4 megabytes in size to be accepted onto the blog or the alt blog even. Use bold or italics for emphasis, and the usual thing of avoiding speech marks and shouting in capital letters. And if you do reference something, Harvard style referencing is what we would use on the blog. So that's the guidance that we would use. You also need to provide tags and keywords, and these are things like your name, your institution, if you want to, the name of any book, conference, project, special interest group, whatever it is that you're referring to, that would go in as a keyword or a tag. And then you've got other keywords and phrases that you want to draw people's attention to within the piece of work. I think if you are producing something that's not text-based, I would say that keywords and phrases are probably more important, because people won't know what you're going to say. It's not like you can just quickly scan down a written text and see the gist of what people are referring to. They would actually have to listen to the whole piece in order to be able to get an overview of what it was. So keywords and phrases are really quite important for that type of submission. Next slide, please, Kay. Thank you. Okay, so Lucy-Anne, I'll just carry on talking as I'm talking, but just jump in whenever, that's fine. So what's the submission process for submitting something to blog? Essentially, what you do is you send your draft contribution to blog@alt.ac.uk. That's the email address on the screen. And then what happens is that the blogs are allocated out so that the editorial team is told what the blog that's come in, and then we can volunteer to edit the blog and be in contact with the person who has written it. We do aim to publish as soon as possible, but depending on how much editing needs to take place, just be aware that sometimes there can be quite a lot of discussion and things are a little bit more delayed. Again, you've got to use Creative Commons Attribution 4 is what we use on the blog. So any images that you're using within that process, you need to be aware of that. And unless otherwise indicated, posts are copyright their author or authors. For more advice, if there's any questions that you have about the blog or writing a blog, you can email the same address and advice will be given. And then there is also a Padlet that's been put together. Kerry, we didn't mention this link before, but are you able to click on the link that's to the bottom, the Padlet, and see whether that opens? Yeah, right. So these are it's the blog inspiration Padlet, and the idea is that you have the opportunity to put some ideas about the things that you might want people to blog about. Or you could see the flip side of that, I suppose, is that you could have a look here and see what people are interested in, and then you could go away and write something about it or record something about it. So there's quite a lot of stuff on there. You can see you've got examples of how people talking about their experiences of submitting CMOD or HEA fellowship. So it's like advice type blogs. Oh, there you go. More examples included. It's more sort of academic, I suppose. The intersection of pedagogy and technology. That's quite a big topic. I'm just looking at what else is on the screen. And then there's also an opportunity for people to post. So it might be that there's something on there and they've got several likes. So that if that came up, somebody might think, oh, yeah, there's quite a lot of people that are interested in that particular topic. So therefore, they're going to focus in on writing about that. So an example being how to get into the field of learning technology. Lucy-Anne, is there anything else?
I'm just getting inspired, actually, folks. I'm scrolling going, oh, I should write something about that. I'm just experiences of submitting CMOLT or HEA fellowship. I don't have my CMOLT. I confess to that now, to the Church of Alt. I do apologise. But I do have my HEA. I'm quite involved in that sort of process. So, yeah, I just got distracted there, didn't I? But I think this is fabulous. And as Abby says, you can come on here and post things that you'd like people to write about. But yes, if you come onto here and you think, just like I did, I could really write something about that, please do. You don't need permission from anybody to write something for the Alt blog. I don't know if you need to hear that, but I want to make sure that I've said it, because I think sometimes we get a little bit, I don't know, maybe it's a bit of imposter syndrome, or you sort of thinking, well, I'm not an academic, so I don't write, for example, or, if this is very much outside of your comfort zone, maybe that that there is a barrier. We would like to at least start to be having these conversations with you. So if you do think there is a barrier, as Abby said, the email address is there, blog at alt.aac.uk. Please come and talk to us, because we want to be enabling you as much as we want this blog to function as an enabler for our well-respected and professional community. If we can enable you to take those steps as well, if you've seen an idea and you want to have a discussion about it, don't think that you have to put in the finished thing. You can make an inquiry and say, look, I'm doing this, I'm interested. Would that make a good blog post? And if you need that, if you need someone to write back to you and say, yes, that absolutely would, please do that. We will do that for you. And then we can work on, as Abby says, the process of getting your article sort of written and edited and published through the process. It's a very easy process. We're all lovely, I promise. And it really does work just the way Abby says. So you submit something. We're all volunteers. We have a 7-year tenure, I believe. I didn't realise I was signing up for 7 years when I joined, folks. And Kerry can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure 7 was in there. So what that means, though, is that your editors are not disappearing. Okay, if you're working on us for something for a few weeks, because it's a really quick turnaround for your article, not a problem. If it's something that we're working over time, like a series that's been developed, you will have a consistent editor for all of that period as well to work with you. We put ourselves forward based on the amount of time that we have, and we commit to working with you to develop your writing, your blog. 3-year minimum term, thank you, with an option to renew for a 6th year. So 7 was a bit out there. I don't know why I wrote that down, but needless to say, we're not going to disappear on you. We're here to work with you in this process, and to make it consistent and reassuring. And at the end of the day, we hope that we and you want the same thing at the end, which is to have your blog published and to have other people. I'm just reading the comments. Once you join, we never let you leave. Oh dear. What have we let ourselves in for, Abby? What have we let ourselves in
That's great.
Yes, I think hopefully that sort of helps. It really is simple. If you're expecting some convoluted process, it's not. Please email us with what you have, and we will work with you. If it needs editing, so I suppose maybe to say something a bit about the editing side, about what we do, is that we will we'll read what you've written, or we'll watch the recording that you've made, and for us it's about taking that and viewing it from the perspective of the community, essentially, about saying, you're within your context, you understand this exactly, your subject. When I'm reading it, what questions do I have? What might I need that's maybe additional, to give me a fuller idea of what you're talking about, so the meaning of the points you're making aren't lost, for example. So that's some of the kind of edits that I've given. It might be, that there's maybe some slight adjustments to tone. Maybe it was once a more formal piece and it wants to be a slightly more conversational piece this time around. We can help with the adjusting of the tone, for example, or if it's a little bit long and it needs to be shorter, or if it's a little bit short and you want it to be a little bit longer. And particularly, you saw Abby's example there, where we'd had the video submission, working with you to make the most of what you've done. You saw how Abby had developed the Q&A then with the poster, to really bring out all of the elements that were within that video to make it a broader, I suppose, more accessible resource. We will work on that as well. So hopefully it's a real kind of starting point for a bit of kind of creativity, and it can go as far as you want, essentially. I think it's fair to say, isn't it, Abby? As long as it sits within those, it's professional, it's the appropriate tone for the Association of Learning Technology to be putting on our blog. There's huge scope for creativity, I believe.
Yeah, I would second that.
Oh, this is me. This is me again. It's anyway, I didn't edit this post. This is my colleague, Amy Giles, who very recently submitted a post to the old blog. I did not edit it on digital accessibility, and I asked her for a few words essentially to sort of sum up her views of the process. It's on the screen for you now. You know, if you do want to ask her about it, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me passing on her details. But you know, as you can see, she was very pleased with the process. It was very smooth for her. She had some editing to do. I spoke to her about that. You know, and she actually really enjoyed going through the editing process. She found that really interesting as part of the, you know, the kind of the whole experience, as well as being able to get published, essentially get her work out there. You know, tell everyone, tell all of you what USW has been up to. So hopefully it's given you a little bit of confidence and a little bit of inspiration to have a think about maybe where you might start with blogging if you've not considered it yet. If you were about to start your very first blog and weren't quite sure, hopefully now this has been the sort of little push to get you over the edge. And if you were running already, you know, if you're already writing, maybe we have just put in front of you another avenue that you could explore to share, you know, all of that fantastic wealth of knowledge and expertise that we have within our community, and share that with others. So, any questions? We'll try our best to answer them, and we have the fabulous Kerry in the chat who knows an awful lot more than us. We have to confess at this point. So if you do have any immediate questions, or if there's anything, Kerry, you want to flag from the chat that you've spotted, just have a look. But,
No, nothing in the chat yet. Do feel free to type in the chat if you've got a question, or pop your microphone and camera on. You know, just to follow up on what Lucianne and Abby shared there, you know, our volunteer editors really do a fantastic job of supporting candidates who put forward, you know, ideas. You know, we've had people who literally just email us and say, I'm doing a thing, does this sound interesting? And then the editors have taken them through the whole kind of process of drafting, putting a post together and getting it published, and they do a fantastic job of supporting people. I think it's always important to say that blogging is not, the whole point of blogging is that it isn't formal, that it isn't that route to publication like doing a journal or something like that, where you've got these peer reviewers, you know, desk rejected, you know, still waiting to hear whether somebody likes, you know, whether you're going to get published, you know, 6 to 12 months later. It's really not like that. It really is genuinely designed to be a easy way to share what you're working on, you know, things. I always use blogging as a way to share things that are on my mind often. So when I used to blog a bit more frequently, I would just talk about things that were on my mind, things that had come up that I was thinking through, and I found it a really useful way just to mull something over by putting it into writing. By having that process, it really helped me to make sense of things. And it really is genuinely, whether you're going to blog on your own platform, which is really easy, you can just go and sign up to, say, wordpress.com for free, and you can start a blog really quickly and very easily. Whether you do it through that, or you want to do it through, you know, our blog, or there are lots of other blogs out there, you know, it really is a informal, friendly process. And it's just about you being able to share what you think, share what you're working on in a really, really informal, low pressure, and genuinely low pressure format. You know, the type of support that our editors especially give to our candidates is really designed to help them write better, to improve what they're working on. Often it's merely just, you know, when you write something yourself, it's just helpful to have somebody else to look over it, to tell you the things that you've missed. Maybe you think this is really clearly explained, what you've written, and it just isn't, and it just helps to have that other pair of eyes on it. And our editors do a fantastic job of giving supportful, formative feedback to people that really helps them to take their blogging forward. And great to see Kerry is perhaps considering doing some blogging as well. And genuinely, if blogging is something that you're interested in doing, it's something that you want to try, doing it through our authors, doing it through our editors, getting their support to do that, especially if it's your first time, I'd really recommend. They do a genuinely fantastic job, and there's about 10 of us now, I think, that edit the blog, not just Lucianne and Abby. We've got several really excellent editors now who support the blog. So I hope that we will hear from some of you with perhaps some blog ideas or something like that. Um, but genuinely, I always think blogging is just one of those things it's worth giving a go and just having a go at and seeing how it feels. And if it sticks, it sticks. It really is one of those things that's quite hard to give up once you start. It can be quite addictive. But if there's no further questions, I just want to say a really big thank you to Abby and to Lucianne for this webinar. It's been a real pleasure working with Lucianne and Abby on the blog, but also to see them put the fruits of their labour forward like this for the rest of the alt community is always fantastic to see. They do a brilliant job, our editors. So really wonderful to have them join us, and I hope you'll join me in thanking them.